Okay, it seems like most people are here. If you still haven't checked in, please do that. Again, that kind of really helps me um, plan the class. Okay, and you can say present in the comments. That doesn't mean anything. You need to go do it in on campus and respond to the prompt. Okay, again, that helps me plan this class out. All right. So before we kind of get into the class, I want to just quickly tell you about what I'm seeing here so far. All right. And I don't think I had as big of a problem with it in this class as I did the last class, but it's still something that I feel like I should at least bring up. Um, this class follows a pattern every single day. All right. You respond to on campus. You respond. So that doesn't mean just say here. That means actually like respond to the question. Two, you come here, you listen to the lecture, and then three, you go to Teams and actually start your homework. Okay, so the problem I'm seeing is that people haven't even started, which overall is just a waste of time. Okay, I build in that time so I can help you, and if you don't need help, then I'm going to assume that you actually know how to do it. All right. So when we need to come back and like recap all this stuff and waste another day, that's content that we could be covering that could be helping you that we're not getting to. Okay, so I'm not gonna try and cram stuff, but we do still need to move forward. Right? We don't have a whole lot more content to cover, but I still would like to get to it, so it can at least help you in future years and on stuff like the SAT and ACT. All right. So one, you need to actually like attempt the homework. Bottom line, like there's no excuse for not attempting the homework. So if you haven't, and you reply none in the comments, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. Okay, I give you time at the end of class, start working on it right then and there. Even if it's like 10 to 15 minutes, even if you get to like 40, like at least something. Okay, I can't see like I shouldn't be seeing people who haven't even started or opened up the homework. That can't happen. Okay. Um, so you need to attempt your homework. You need to ask questions, and ideally, you are working in teams. Even if you understand it, you're in there and you're waiting for people to ask questions, or you're asking questions if you actually have any. That helps everyone. It helps me plan the class. It helps you guys understand the content, um, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do. Okay, these homeworks aren't meant to be like super hard. They're just meant so you actually understand what's happening. Okay. All right. So with all that being said, today I want to quickly recap law of sines. So all we're really doing is reviewing law of sines, okay, and this equation. All right. So again, this shouldn't take too long, and I want to give you a little bit more time to actually finish it, um, and we'll move on from there. All right. So we'll probably cover the law of cosines, and we might cover a little bit more terminology about circles. And I don't see us going too much farther than that. All right, so we're looking at that for uh, the final stuff. And I still haven't made the actual like example final, but I'm still heading in the direction that it's going to be something to do with triangles. You go out and you measure some height or something like that. All right, but back to what we were doing. Okay, the law of sines, given a triangle that's not necessarily a right triangle, we can split up into ratios of sines of angles and their opposite sides. Okay, so a couple of people in on campus had said, well, what if you're given, let's say, A, B, and angle B in this case, and you have to find angle A? We can still do that, and I have an example like that. Um, but before we get there, I'll kind of answer one or two questions that people had. Um, one, I guess, in order to answer that, you have to use inverse trig, which again, I have an example coming up, but let's do a couple of let's address a couple of questions that other people had. So let me draw this. And given this triangle, we want to find the side length of V. All right. So, and the direction, part of the directions say write your answer as an integer or a decimal rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay, so given this triangle, we need to find this side length, which I'll mark in red. And the first thing that we should do is, as soon as we mark that side length, is to find its opposite angle. Okay, so if we draw a line from that side length to the other end of the triangle, we get its opposite angle. And then we have another angle right here, this 133. And then we find its opposite side, which is side length T. All right, and then our third angle, this angle U, has opposite side length 13. Okay, so if we set up our ratio, we get sine of 19, or I'll write it out entirely. So sine of V over its opposite side length is equal to sine of T over its opposite side length, which is equal to sine of U over its opposite side length. Okay. What we're trying to find here is this unknown. So we're trying to find lowercase v. We're trying to find this side length. So that should be the only unknown that we have. So if we start to substitute in what we have, we get sine of 19 over v is equal to sine of 133 over its opposite side length t, which is equal to sine of u over its opposite side length 13. Okay, now there are two unknowns in the other two ratios. Okay, and we can only have one unknown to solve for. We can only have the unknown of v. But because we have two angles, we actually have a third. All right, so we can find this angle u by setting up our equation, by summing up all these things. So if we add up each angle, that will always add up to 180 in a triangle. And then we just substitute. Once we do that, we can do a little bit of algebra and solve. So angle U is actually 28 degrees. Okay, so if you were given one angle, or if you were given two angles, but not necessarily one of those two sides, you can at least find that third angle and use it. Okay, so now if we replace that, we have our V unknown. In this blue part, we still have our T unknown. And then we have sine of 28 over 13. So we can cancel out this blue part because there's another unknown in it, right? We would have to solve for that side length T, but we don't have that. Okay, so we're really just focused on red and green. So if we rewrite that, so we have sine of 19 over v is equal to sine of 28 over 13. And then we can do some algebra. So we cross multiply. Right, so if we do that, we get 13 sine of 19 is equal to v sine of 28. Then again, we have to get v by itself, so we have to divide both sides by sine of 28. So we get 13 sine of 19 divided by sine of 28 is equal to v. Okay, so I want to pause there before we actually get like a legitimate answer. But are there any questions about what I did in any of that? I realize I moved a little bit quick without pausing, but questions about that setup? Okay, but that's not an answer that like is a degree, right? We can't like just take that and get a side length. Like we don't know what that actually is. So let's go to our calculator. Can we keep it like that, or do we have to actually get a number? Again, so that's what I'm about to do. I'm gonna actually get a number. If this were like a written test for me, uh, that would get you like if this were a 5 point problem, that would get you like 4.5 or something, right? So it gets you most of the credit, but I do want an actual answer. All right, so if we go to Desmos or we go to our calculator, we would type in that red box. And no matter what you're on, right? So if you're on a TI-84 or TI-83, you want to go to mode, which is like one of the first buttons you see. Scroll down to where it says radian and degree, highlight that degree, hit enter on it, and then you're in degree mode. Okay, if you're on Desmos, you want to go to this wrench icon, click it, go to degrees, click that. Okay, so that's like the first thing you should do. And then we just type in as we see it on the screen. Okay, now if I were doing this, and I would suggest you guys do this too, I'd put the numerator in parentheses and the denominator in parentheses. So when we type it out, it is 13 times sine of 19 divided by sine of 28. And then we get 9.015. This says round to the 10th, so it's 9.0. Okay, so again, I want to stop there for a second. Are there any questions about how I did that? No, but aren't we rounded to the nearest 10th? Yes. Okay, so our answer is 9.015. We can't round up. There is no, like, right, our 100th place is 1. So we round down to the nearest 10th, so it's 9.0. All right, I want to do 2 more quick examples. So I want to do this example on the screen. And then I've got one more that involves a little bit of inverse trig. All right, which is like adding one piece to this, which you may not have seen very, very obviously, but it's still like a possibility. All right. So given this triangle ABC, we want to find the measure of angle C. All right, so in this case, we're not finding a side length, kind of like what IXL is asking. We're actually finding this angle C. Okay, so once we mark that angle, we find its opposite side. That's 26. And then we have this other angle here, 58, and its opposite side is 28. And then we don't really need to worry about this angle B and this side length B, because we already kind of have enough for a ratio. All right, so if we were to set that up, we would have sine of C, sine of angle C over its opposite side length is equal to sine of angle A over its opposite side length. And then we can just substitute in stuff we know. So sine of C, right, we don't know that angle, over its opposite side length is equal to sine of A, which is 58, over its opposite side length, which is 28. Okay, again, quick pause. Are there any questions about how I got that set up? All right, so once we get here, we still need to find the angle C. All right, so we need to get this numerator by itself. In order to do that, we multiply both sides by 26. And when we do that, we get 26 sine of 58 over 28. And now our unknown is inside of that sine, okay? So this is where we go back a couple of class periods. And we have to get C by itself. And in order to do that, we use inverse trig. So if we take the inverse sine of both sides, what will happen is this inverse sine in white will undo this regular sine in blue, and all that will be left is C. Okay, and then on the other side, we get sine inverse of 26 sine of 58 over 28, and then that will end up being our answer. And again, that's not like a complete answer. That's, again, it's about 90% of the credit. And then I'll show you how to type that into a calculator here in a second. Okay. But are there questions about how I got that and why that works? Is that 26 times sine of 58? Yeah. It's 26 times sine of 58 divided by 28. So when we write this in our calculator, again, I would have parentheses around the numerator and around the denominator, just to be safe. And in order to type that into our calculator, we want the inverse sine. And then in our numerator, we have 26 times sine of 58. That's our numerator. Divide that by 28. Hit enter, and we get 51.95. Okay, so that is the measure of the angle C. So our answer, if we set a round up to the nearest tenth, would just be 52. Okay, so that angle C is just 52 degrees. Questions about how I got that or how I typed it into a calculator? All right, so I want to do one more example that was a little bit more like the ones in IXL. Which is just to find a side length, okay? And these are a little bit easier because you don't have to go through using inverse trig, which is what we did above, all right? But given this triangle ABC, we want to find the side length AC, which is this side length right here. All right, and for this, we're going to call that B. Okay, so if we find that opposite angle, we draw a line from this side to the other side of the triangle, and that's angle B. We have angle A. That opposite side length is unknown. And then we have this angle C, whose opposite side length is 10, which we will call angle C, or side length C. Okay, so if we set up our law of sines, we get sine of 88 divided by that side length, that opposite side length, is equal to sine of 27 over B, which is what we're trying to find, and that's equal to sine of angle C over its opposite side length, which is 10. Okay, so now we need to find out which part of these ratios we actually use. Okay, so we are trying to find this side length in B, and our options are either to find A or to find C, because those are the things we would need in order to solve for our unknown. Okay, the easiest one to do here is to find this angle C. Okay, because we know that the sum of all angles in a triangle add up to 180. So if we do that, angle A plus angle B plus angle C is equal to 180. So 88 plus 27 plus angle C is also equal to 180. And when we add that up, we get 115 plus angle C is equal to 180, so angle C must be equal to 65. All right, so then we can replace that up here. And not worry about this blue part. And then we can solve that proportion. So the first thing we'd have to do is cross multiply to get 10 times sine of 27 is equal to b times sine of 65. We're going to try and get b by itself, so we need to divide by sine of 65 on both sides. So we would get 10 sine of 27 over sine of 65 is equal to b. Okay, and again, that's pretty much the answer. Could we have done it the other way? I'm guessing you mean by finding that a side, and not really. At least you don't have the tools yet to do that. And I'm not even sure how you would start it, but you would need to find that green angle. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I would focus on making this as simple as possible. Okay, so questions about that setup, questions about anything I got up here. Okay, so then we still need to find a number answer to that. So we go to Desmos or our calculator and type in pretty much exactly this that I have up on screen. Again, I would make sure that your numerator has parentheses and your denominator has parentheses. So we would type in 10 times sine of 27 and then divide that by sine of 65. And we get 5.009. If we round that to the nearest tenth, it's just 5.0. So questions about anything on this problem, how I typed it in the calculator, how I got this set up, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to leave this open for a minute or two, and if you have any general questions, you can ask here. Otherwise, I'll start a meeting on Teams, and you should be working in there, right? So if you've already finished this homework, then by all means, you're fine. But your homework is to finish that last IXL, which I think was R11. Okay, so that should be done by the end of today. And if you need to work on it, that's fine. Get it finished. Make sure you understand it. But that needs to be done by tomorrow. All right, and I will start a Teams meeting, and if you have specific questions about it, I can help you out. Uh, Again, the expectation is that check in on campus, ask questions, go to the lecture, go to Teams, and even if you don't have any questions, just be there and work. Okay. So again, minute or two on here, general questions, and then I'll start the meeting. All right. Since there are no questions, I will end this, and then in the next minute or so, I will start a meeting on Teams. So I will see you there.